Hello, and welcome back to season 2 of Goalie Interference. It wasn't just for one season. You didn't run off to some special super gig that means you could never join us again. I can't believe that didn't happen. I thought for sure it was. But you're back. What is up, Mr. Mike McKenna? How are you?
Yeah, I didn't take any extra jobs. I still have the main gig. I'm still at dailyfaceoff.com, and it's glad I didn't get fired. But no, that is I guess for people that don't know, that really is my main gig is dailyfaceoff.com. I do that. Man, I'm writing 10 pieces a week, pretty much in season, daily matchups and stuff. So
it's fun,
right?
It's
going
10 pieces a week. It's fun.
Yeah, well, the 7-0s are just goalie matchups that are pretty quick, right? 250, 300 words. But some of the bigger pieces, 800-900 words, you do 3 of those a week, boy, you're cranking. So
yeah, see, now you're feeling it. I've been doing it for 7 years, my friend.
Yeah, but you also went to J school, man, at Mizzou. While I
did.
As
it turns out, they didn't teach us a lot about how to write 7 articles a week about the Golden Knights, especially when they're not playing for 6 months consecutively.
Oh, I know.
Hey, we figured it out.
Yeah, but you know what? Hey, I tell you what, though, Ken, I feel right now that I'm about as excited about the Golden Knights as I've been in a while, just because everything's pretty much new to me. You got a new coach, you got new goalies, there's just a different feel to it. Eichel, and this isn't a better or worse thing for me. I'm not really critiquing, are they better on paper or not? Or it's just
they're not.
It's a different look, and they aren't better on paper. That's true, but it's a different look, and I want to really drive this point home today as we go through. Man, coaches matter. We somehow tend to forget that they can make a really big difference. And so I'm very curious to see how things look in the regular season, because I could give a shit about preseason. I'm curious how the regular season is going to look with Bruce Cassidy as a head coach, because the guy's a winner.
He is. Let's just jump right into that. I have my LFG shirt on today, so I'm not messing around. There is no time to waste.
Go.
That's right. And even with Tom Brady, that does not even frickin' is not even accurate. But it's been, about 2 weeks or so that we've been talking to Bruce every single day. And, I think for the first time, I would say in Golden Knights history, I highly recommend listening to every single press conference. If you're a fan, if you're just somebody who enjoys hockey, you learn more about the game every single time. But the thing that's really jumping out to me, and where I wanted to start with you, is he's not afraid to, and I don't love the term throw a guy under the bus, because I don't think that's actually what's happening. I think he's just being honest about what he's seeing. After the game a couple of days ago, or the one on Friday, he didn't like the effort at all. He said, we got to get the hell back to work. He was kind of going after them after that game. This previous game, he's kind of talking about he didn't like the fourth line. He thought they weren't good enough. It kind of felt like that was a shot at Kolazar more so than Wah. Same press conference. He was cool about Wah. I guess my question to you is, first of all, who was the most direct and blunt, honest coach you had while you were in the league? And then beyond that, how do you take it as whether a goalie, or do you think your teammates take it, or whatever, when you hear some of these things that are pretty straightforward and honest, and are they saying it to you first, and then how do you feel about them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ken Hitchcock was pretty straightforward. I can still hear his voice on the bench. Get it deep, Spaz. You gotta get the puck deep. You gotta find value. Come on, F me, Spaz. I can hear Hitch screaming. Rick Tocchet was really direct in a different way. He wasn't kind of like the I'm going to give myself a hot water by saying the whiny sense of Hitchcock. But if you ask any player, it was kind of whiny on the bench is how it came across.
Sounds it, yeah.
Talk was more I played for him in Tampa, 2008-9. That was my first year in the league. I remember one night in Calgary, I had 3 or 4 tip shots go in, our deflection screens, and Talk just in between periods looks at me and goes, just get big in there. And I was how do you want, I didn't say this, but I was how do you want me to get big in there? Do you want me to grow? And so, but he was not a guy who was afraid to just straight up look at you and be man, you gotta be better. And some will do it more so behind the scenes than they will in public. It gets tough when people do it in public, though. And, I've just like everybody else, I've seen some of the quotes. Like one that stuck out to me was talking about Nick Hague. Well, he's not here, so we're not worried about him. When he gets here, we'll figure it out. And I tell you what, that's really matter of the fact, but that's just blunt reality.
Yep.
And, fourth line hasn't been good enough, right? And, and then the game against San Jose where you allow 7 goals.
Horrible. Yeah.
It just like those are just like attention grabbers for coaches. You just hate to lose like that even in preseason. If you lose, you hope you're losing like 4-3, 4-2 or something, not getting a football or
it was bad
touchdown put up.
Right?
I couldn't get to see that one, and it
was bad.
Yeah, and it happens in preseason, but I know I've played against Cassidy for a really long time. American League for years when he was in Providence and then going up. And his reputation is, he is not the easiest guy to play for unless you've played 800 games in the league. Like if you were Patrice Bergeron or Brad Marchand, you could kind of do what you wanted, but they'd earn that. And that's why when he became available, I was like, man, this guy would be a really good fit for Vegas because the team's so veteran, really. Like if there's any team in the league I thought that could handle, and handle's not the right word, but maybe a team that could kind of fit to what Cassidy demands from his players. I'm like, I think the Golden Knights could. And so, it's a little different, but I just think I appreciate direct as long as you're not being derogatory. That's the biggest thing. Like, I could look at our squirt team that I'm coaching right now and be like, oh, these kids, half the kids don't have any skill and the other half don't have any care. I could do that all I wanted. It's just the reality. But they're also like 9 and 10-year-old kids playing like
under
low level B hockey, right?
Get them under that bus ASAP so they know the feeling, so that they're hardened when they come up. Like that's what you need to do.
Yeah, so I can't just like look at these kids and be like, why don't you care? Like, why don't you go home and shoot pucks? Like, you have to encourage things. It's a little different with kids, but it is really interesting, the different tactics amongst coaches. And I think Cassidy's somebody who is, like you said, it's what you see is what you get there, man. And here's the thing. I know some players that didn't like playing for him. I know that. I know that there were players that thought that Boston wasn't a great place to play because he was coaching and blah. And you know what I say to that is, shut up. You guys are good.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if I was on that team, I'd probably be doing the complaining too. But you kind of have to look at big picture and realize, man, your teams were good, and you didn't always have, in Boston at least, that strong of a lineup, not that deep of a lineup.
Right.
Like, especially at forward the last couple of years. So
to a degree, it's similar to what they have here. I think they have
very much so
higher end talent offensively, and I don't think they had as much on the blue line. Their goalies, once Pekka went out, not Pekka. What's the goalie's name? Why can't I think of the
Tuukka?
Why can't get Pekka's name? Yeah, once Tuukka was gone, they didn't exactly have super high end goalies. They went with the rookie Swayman last year, so there is some similarity there. I think the big question to me, straight off the bat, is what is it going to look like? And then what is the pressure on the players, on the coach, on the front office? How is it all going to work together? Because I think it's pretty clear we've been through 5 preseason games, and we haven't seen all of the good players yet. There's never been anything like a full lineup. They've really never gotten much more than half of a full lineup here or there. So I don't want to go overboard on it, but when you watch practice, when you watch the games, when you watch different pieces of what they're doing, and then when you listen to Bruce talk, there's definitely a feeling of like, yes, it's going to take us some time to get this defensive system right. It's going to take us some time to get right on special teams. It's going to take us some time to figure out what we're best at offensively. How do we generate these transition chances that we're so good at and not just rely on those only? So early in the season, I think you look at there being some massive ups and downs. And then the fact of the matter is, I don't know how the blunt honesty is going to come across early in a season where we'll show the projections later. I think they're reasonably somewhere around 90 to 97 points as their projection. They're definitely not picked to win the division. However, it's year 6. They've been to the conference final 3 times in 5 years. there was a belief of we should have never missed the playoffs last year. We're better than this. There is a belief of we are a cup contender. How do you feel like those two things are going to mesh in like, it may not go smoothly off the top, but at the same time, you have an owner that said 6 years ago, this is it. We're winning right now. Like we could throw that out, but either way, the expectations are high. How do you think those go together?
Well, I think the team's got to be good right out of the gate. I don't think they have the luxury of figuring things out for over the course of the first month.
That's scary to me because they're not going to be.
And there's a couple of things that play into this that I think give me a bit of hope. I think first off, I think all the pressure's on management, period. I don't think it's on the players anymore at all. I don't think there's any pressure on the players at this point. I think it's all on management. Yeah, like, I really believe that.
Eichel certainly Thompson.
I think Eichel probably will feel the heat the most because he's the only guy in this lineup that's got to prove something to me. Okay, like when Stone's like, no, Phil doesn't have to prove anything. Okay. Phil has won Stanley Cups. Phil came in great shape, by the way. Like, he looks great, and that's an excited player. Like, tell you that right away.
Talk about that line later. I've got that on the rundown.
Yeah, I think that to me, realistically speaking about this, Eichel still got it because Eichel hasn't proved anything in the league really, other than being a great player, but he hasn't won. He's been in Buffalo for years. He's never played a playoff game. And so I'm sure he's feeling a lot of internal pressure. But the rest of this lineup, to me, should feel pretty scot-free. Even like Logan Thompson, believe it or not, to me, this is his best opportunity by a mile. It's the best opportunity he's ever going to get. I really don't think there's a lot of pressure on him. If he can channel this the proper way, in that this team they want to give him that crease. Okay. And I don't mean give it. They want him to earn that crease.
Okay, that's fair.
But here's the thing: he's going to have that crease right away. And I saw Cassidy.
Yes, it's his.
I saw Cassidy say that we're not going to proclaim anybody a number one. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you know why? Because no coach proclaims a number one goaltender anymore, unless
he kind of just did. A couple days ago, he kind of just did. He said he's ahead. LT's ahead. It's not. There's no debating it here. Like he's none. He's ahead. He's getting game one. He's probably getting game two. Yes. Wouldn't shock me if he gets game
But
three.
here's why that's good biz. And I think we all kind of know this if we're watching the show, but like his cap hit is the greatest asset that the Golden Knights can possibly have over the next 2-3 seasons here if he can take the ball and run with it. 100%. They want him to succeed. And I think he can. I think there's parts of his game that I've talked about before that could use tweaks. And I'm sure that it's something that Sean Burke's worked with him on. But even for the faults that I had seen, he still put up, a 9-1, 9-14 down the stretch when the team was depleted and blah, blah, blah. The part that I like for Thompson, I know we're already kind of getting into goalies here, but we might as well since we're just sitting there, right? Why not?
The name of the show.
It is. He has the luxury of having that great contract in his back pocket, but he also has the adulation of a fan base.
He does.
And the reason for this is twofold. And I don't think I'm really saying anything here that's off base, but the first being is that he is not Marc-Andre's replacement. Okay. Logan Thompson represents the freeing of the chains from Marc-Andre Fleury. It's the cleansing of Marc-Andre Fleury. It's okay. He is gone. He is not coming back. And now we have a goalie that we've developed from within our own organization that we saw dominate in Henderson, that came up and did well. And so that's the first aspect, is that he came from within and he didn't have the replacement factor that Robin did when he came in. The other part of this is that Logan Thompson plays a little bit like Marc-Andre Fleury, and the eye test of that and the eye candy that people get in Vegas, and admittedly a large portion of the fan base that didn't know a puck from a pumpkin 6 years ago, it's exciting to watch Thompson. because of his athleticism, because of his explosiveness, because in ways he resembles Marc-Andre. And people cling to that, and they want to root for him because of that. And so, I mean, he's in as good a place as you can be. I really believe that. But the league is going to figure him out quickly, though. And that's where you're going to see the true test is midway through the year. Can he sustain this? Can he make adjustments? Does the league figure out what it takes like they did against Cal Peterson in LA? Because the word's out on Cal Peterson, man. And that $5 million deal looks like shit right now. So, I mean, good for Cal. Like, you know what I mean? But like, I'd hate to have an 8.95 save percentage goalie making $5 million. So in any case, that's how I feel for Logan. I really do believe that he can play number one minutes here, and he will. Aiden Hill, if he can improve his skating a little bit and
it's good last night.
I mean, what do you have? How many shots did he face last
53.
night? 53. Yeah, it's a decent total. And I've seen, here's the thing, I've seen Aiden Hill play really, really good hockey.
He can be good. Yeah. Brossoit can
be good. We played, like, Hill and I played a playoff series against each other in the American League a few years ago. And man, it was like, we had like 4 shutouts combined, like at other ends, in the series. Like, it was an awesome series to where, like, I remember we skated past each other in warmups the one time after game 4 or 5. And we're just like, man, we almost don't want this to end. Like, it was that good. It's just that he was supposed to be the goalie in San Jose last year, and it just didn't work. He didn't grab it. And, it's the same thing. He's got things that have to be better at this level. He's got to skate better. He's got to get square. He can't just rely on size. So can Hill play reliable number 2 minutes in this league right now? I think he can do that. I don't know if he could play number 1. So it'll be interesting how that plays out because, as you know, I mean, Thompson's the only guy that's waiver exempt at this point. He's the one that could be sent down. So, like, dude, I'd hate to be in LB's shoes because I think LB's got a one-way ticket out of town when
it seems that way. It certainly seems that way. But at the same time, being injured, he sits there and waits through a period of however many games it happens to be. And if it doesn't look good in the crease, he's going to walk in and be the savior. So as much as I do agree with you that is the case, that can be the case, that, he's going to end up being healthy. There's 2 guys that are already good enough. There's no argument to say he's going to be all that much better than them. Ship him out. That very well may be the case. But there's also the possibility that things aren't as buttoned up defensively as what they probably will be down the road, that they're not generating a ton of offense early in the season, and the special teams is not bailing them out the way that I think it will 4 or 5 months into the season or wherever it happens to be. I think that there is something to be said about the fact that, like, this may not go well early, and I do think it's important from everybody, be that us, the fans, Cassidy, the front office. Like, I think everybody has to understand that, like, it's not going to be all in on the goalies early in the season. There's so much more to what's going to happen early in this season with all the road games, a number of tough teams that they play early in the season. It's not going to be easy on anybody, like literally anybody. I don't see anyone who's going to walk in here and just dominate under the circumstance. Like, the other thing I wanted to touch on with you're saying that coaching does matter. And I completely agree with you that a switch in coach is good and it can be good. The problem that I have with it is I don't think they fired a bad coach at all. Like, in many ways, I think they actually got to where they got to last season in spite of what they were doing with the roster, because their coaching was very good, because they were able to do some things that they probably should not have been able to do. He's dragging points out of Zach Whitecloud, out of Michael Amadio, those types of players, right? So how does this fit?
And let me give you a quick one there. I actually have Dallas as being a sneaky team this year, purely based on DeBoer. If they ever get Jason Robertson signed,
they will.
Like, Pete DeBoer in his first year with teams crushes it, man.
Like, I actually have Central. Like,
I have Dallas finishing second. I have him second in the Central, and like, I know I've been hard on Pete previously because I think that, for the reasons I've said, I don't think he adapts as quick as he needs to sometimes. I think that his shot creation is, not what you really need come playoff time. But whatever, he wins games and gets teams there. And he's a damn good coach. But, to flip it back like this, you're right about it's not going to be all on goaltending to start the year by any means, but it will be in everybody's eyes, man. Like that's just how it works. And just to kind of put a bow on this real quick, like Brossois 2.5 million, I think is his cap hit.
Yeah, about two. I think it's 235, something like that.
I mean, that's
similar to Hills.
That's going to be the reason why you're moving along, if anything, right? Even $1 million saving in cap space will be good and help. But for Cassidy though, like I'm a fan of his style of system, like as a goalie especially, and I think that the Boston goaltenders the past couple of years will all tell you that as well. Whether it's Rask or Swayman or Ullmark, his teams defend, man, and it's to me because they play a zone defense, which I prefer. I'm a goalie.
Yep.
Now, a zone defense doesn't get you the puck back as quickly.
Bingo.
And that's the whole reason why, especially with DeBoer and others, you're going to man, because you want that puck right away to get going in transition. And that had been one of the criticisms of Boston, is that because of that, they weren't able to generate enough on offense. So I'm curious to see how that plays. I'm curious to see the tweaks that he's made since then. But it's funny because, early, like when I first started doing the broadcast for Vegas, that was 2019. And I'll never forget, like maybe 2 months into the season, they'd been doing man-to-man defense under Turk.
They switched.
And man, they were getting crushed, right? Crush. Guys were getting crossed left and right, and it was just a mess. And I remember one day on the broadcast, I was diagramming something. I was like, well, this is the perils of doing man-to-man defense, is that you get two guys running, and I just described it. Mm-hmm. And like as soon as we went off air, I was told by somebody that I need to be careful there because this has been an internal debate. So, and I was like, okay, who are we talking about? And it was a classic case of somebody probably knowing more than they should have, because then it was management to coaches or whoever, right? But it was real, and it was funny because it was like right as I mentioned that, within like the next week or two, they moved to a zone, like a modified zone D, kind of the same way as Cassidy's doing. And so what I said was actually like really prescient, like really like spot on and bang on. But I got basically a warning, not even from the team, that I need to be careful about analyzing the sport and being paid to do what I am supposed to do, which was really interesting to me. And I didn't think a whole lot of it at the time, but looking back, I probably should have. But I really like zone defense in that way. It prevents shots. It keeps it to the outside. You don't allow as much. There's not as many massive breakdowns usually. Typically, not that San Jose game, according to Cassidy. Again, I didn't.
Yesterday was the same thing in the second period, but again, there's one NHL level defenseman there.
Yeah, and you're learning this system.
Yeah, that's the piece I'm concerned about.
Yeah. And here's the thing: like NHL players have all played these different systems. Okay, like if you think you're going to grab somebody that's been in the league for this long, if you think you're going to grab Alec Martinez and be like, hey, dude, we're playing zone defense, he's going to go, oh, I've never done that. It's just, dude, that's not happening, right?
Go to the dictionary, looking up the word zone. Like, how do you, what is the...
He's going to be fine. But there is always little layers to what a coach can do differently that players need to learn. There's always little preferences. There's different, the way they layer out from the corners with the different, whether you're going from D to center to whoever, it's that part will take a little bit of time. It's not easy to implement right off the bat, but I really think the runway's not long for these guys. Like they've got to be good right away. Like the first month of the season's always crazy. And like Ken also, like, I still don't think the Pacific's very strong.
It's all right. It's better. I don't think it's as the bottom isn't as bad as it's been.
It's better because LA is actually good now.
I mean, that's part of it. LA is better. I think like Seattle's going to be competent this season. I think
Vancouver should be more consistent, even though they've had a tough preseason.
Yeah.
But so yeah, like what's funny though is you asked right off the top, like who's the pressure on, and my coworker over at Daily Faceoff, Frank Serafali, just posted today his 32 big thoughts on the season. Or not thoughts, but 32 bold predictions. And one of them was Kelly McCrimmon will lose his job. He'll be the first GM let go this year. And that was a bold one, but that's what the bold predictions are for, I guess. So,
I mean, so the way that I kind of look at it is, there's a lot of issues that this team had last season. Like when we were going through the season, there were scoring woes, there were high danger chance woes, there were goalie woes at time, there was always the special teams. And this guy, Cassidy, comes in and he's going to eventually, I think, fix a lot of it. I think there's a lot of pieces of what he can do, power play being like number one on the board.
Yeah.
He's eventually going to fix it. I happened to talk to a number of different players today. Marchessault and Stevenson were the ones that went the most in depth with me, and I have a story coming out on this tomorrow. There are a ton of options. And when Bruce Cassidy talks about the power play, he's speaking a million miles an hour. And you take a while just to get to understand what he's talking about, let alone implement that on the ice. Now, certain things are going to work. They're going to have more chances. They're going to have different looks than they've ever had in the past. It's probably going to score some goals at times, but it's going to look real bad at different times because of the fact that they're doing different things. He's going to constantly be tweaking it. He's going to be looking for different pieces. And Jason and I have talked about this a lot on the podcast. The difference in that pressure index on the coach versus the players versus the front office is intriguing. Because if it's not working, let's say the defense, special teams don't worry that much about it. They're always going to be trying to get better about that. Let's say the defense is struggling early and they're allowing a bunch of high danger chances. They're not getting the saves that they need to get, and it just isn't quite where it needs to be. Call it 10 games into the season, and it's cost them 2 or 3, and now they're sitting here at 3 wins, 6 losses, and an overtime loss or something like that. Bad, right? Season over? Absolutely not. But do you start to see the panics, the switches, the changes, the let's go back to what we were doing? Or does Cassidy say, no, this has to be how it's going to work? And then how does it all mesh together with the front office? Because you're doing things, like it or not, your defense is going to be doing something they are not comfortable with. And I don't mean playing zone. I mean not getting the puck back. They are going to have times where they're living in their defensive zone for
they have to work
shift after shift. They did it last night, could not flip it around, that they're not going to be comfortable with. Are they going to stick with it? Where does that go? And then, like you said with Frank's article, if Kelly's job is on the line, what does he do? Because I don't know I have no information on this. It's a complete guess from me. I think the front office pushed the zone defense on Gerard Gallant and then fired him when it didn't work. I honestly believe that. I'm not sure if that's accurate or not. Are they going to push him back into like, no, 1-1-3 neutral zone? Enough with this bullshit. Like, is that actually possible?
I think you might be a little clairvoyant. I have had similar thoughts. I don't think it was really a matter of tactics either with Turk either. I think there was, more to it, obviously, but
they weren't compatible. Let's just be honest.
That's what it comes down to.
And the head coach were not compatible.
Yeah. And I mean, I played for Turk. I know what he's like. He's a dream for a player, man. Like in your corner at all times, expects the most out of you, all that stuff. And I know we're going back here. Bottom line, they hired Bruce Cassidy to do what he does. It's ride or die with what he does. They're not switching it. And they're stuck with it. And I don't mean that's a bad word to say, stuck with it, okay?
It's worked.
It's worked. It's proven. Like, dude, Boston has been one of the best teams in the league. His power play has been top 3 in the NHL since he's been a head coach in the NHL for the second go around. Like, not Washington the first time years ago. Okay, like Boston this time. So,
it does not look like that at all in practice right now. They did it for 20 minutes today and scored 3 times.
So it's practice. It's preseason. By the way, I guarantee you're going to see Marchessault shooting way more pucks on the off wing is what I'm hoping, because I can see him playing the Pasternak role right now. Today. It's no surprise. Like, I haven't seen practice, and I called that because guess what? I've seen that come at me firsthand. But his system works, and like his 1-2-2 works, his D zone works. There will be a comfort level. You have to adapt to what your coach has. And I do think, again, that this is a veteran enough group of a team that they can handle this no problem. And I know that
they're losing.
I think, yeah. The thing is, though, like, this team's never lost. Like even last year, it was just, well, we're so beat up. What can we do?
Mm-hmm.
Which was, I guarantee if you're in that locker room, you're looking at everybody going, man, like we're doing everything we can here. We just don't have the horses.
There was a lot
Like,
of woe is me last year. Like,
yeah,
it's not our
it's,
fault.
it starts
Eventually,
to,
we'll get it back. Yeah.
it starts to filter in. You can't help it because it's just reality, dude. Like you have to have a pretty good lineup to keep going,
Well, we
unless
all
you're the
said
Pittsburgh Penguins. Yeah.
right? Didn't we all say the same thing? We came on here week in and week out. Like, how are you supposed to win when you have 4 AHLers in your 12 forwards? Like, what are you supposed to do? And then they win some games.
Right. But that's kind of like, that is going to be the big challenge here is the depth is not the same this year at all. And I do see this team built kind of similar to Boston, like you said, the last couple of years, right? Like that third line and like the fourth line for Boston was almost non-existent. The third line last year, his third line in Boston took 2/3 of the year to come together. And they finally got Charlie Coyle to the middle and it kind of started to go with Trent Frederick and other guys. Are we really going to see, is Brett Howden going to fit on the third line well, right? Is it going to really be Howden, Carlson, and Amadio? Is that what we're looking at here? And
that's what it's been.
Will Carlson is a very expensive third line centerman, but his production is third line center at this. He's a very good third line, lower tier second line centerman. If he's on another team, second line centerman for sure.
It just depends on what they're asking for him, and
he's going to be a defensive. He's going to be a defensive player,
that's
man.
Correct.
Whether as much as you want to pump it up that he's going to find a way to score goals. He's worked on a shot, all these other things. If you're taking 55% of the faceoffs in your D zone and Eichel's taking 80% in the O zone,
I think you're talking 70%, not 50%. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a foregone conclusion, as good as Carlson is in a transition role. So, I mean, in some ways with him, like you better hope, God, he better be the best defensive player out there because otherwise his contract's going to start to look tough too.
Well, so. and like, to me, it's an unwinnable spot for William Karlsson because I don't think Michael Amadio is good defensively, and I don't think Brett Howden's good defensively. And I don't know that William Karlsson is the type of player that pulls guys up in that way. Like, I think he can help you generate offense. I think they will do some scoring when they have offensive zone shifts, but I'm concerned about what does that look like when they're going up against Kempe, Fiala, and Kopitar. Like, it's going to be tough. And then beyond that, they have to be a lockdown unit because you can't play Eichel and Kessel against Nathan McKinnon and Rantanen. You can't do it.
I do like. I'm going to push back with Howden because I think Howden's a really smart player. I think he's better defensively than we may realize. Okay. And if we get to see it over a whole year, he was my breakout player for the team last year. Like, man, I
got hurt. The numbers were okay.
His numbers were way ahead of where his curve has been, though. Yep. And like, I remember we got him out of junior hockey in Syracuse in the American League, and he was pretty good. And then he ended up on the Rangers and just was kind of there. I thought he was really good last year, but Amadio is a way better offensive player than people realize. Really gifted, but you are spot on. Like, is that going to be a shutdown line? Because I don't, do you put? Usually, you could also look to Riley Smith to play shutdown minutes. Well, that's not happening where he is right now.
Now,
with
he is like
Kessel and Eichel.
These two, like a good luck. I don't understand that line at all. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't get it. It makes no sense to me. Kessel, Eichel, and Smith. It makes no sense to me.
I think you're going to see. I think you'll see Stevenson, Stone, Marchessault playing more shutdown minutes than we realize. I think. That's just a guess on my part. I don't know.
How many times have we talked about Stevenson in his own end? Like, the guy can fly. The guy's good offensively. He holds the puck. There's good things that he does. And now you're putting him in a new system that's going to rely on them in their own zone. I think the other piece that I don't love is I think this zone defense kind of takes away some of the best things that wingers have to do in their own end. And that concerns me, where their best defensive players, Stone and Smith, are wings. And I think they're going to be standing out by the point. And you kind of just ignore that portion. Like, don't throw it towards Pat Surtain. There's no reason to do that. Like, don't put it out to the point where Smith and Stone are. Like, I don't know. I don't like the lineup as it currently sets. But at the same time, anytime I go through a lineup, they're missing a player. They're missing a top 6 left winger, and there's no other way around it. And Paul,
they're missing Max Pacioretty, which we know. I mean,
Dodonov.
Yeah, even Dodonov, was somebody who was as much shit as we gave him last year. Look at it, what he put up. Yeah, I mean, he'd go totally missing at times, but
he'll score sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, you light a fire under him. Look what happens. Maybe they should have accidentally not traded him 4 times during the year, and he would have been a 100-point guy. But that's so mean to say, man. Like,
it is what it is.
Yeah, it is. But this is also how you evaluate teams that are now 5-6 years in. This is the 6th year, and how many players have been developed from within? Like, I know that like there's pushback on that. Look at Zach Whitecloud, and other guys. Well, like, there's nobody in the top end of the lineup. They've all had to be bought. Like, you might have, like, even if Cotter makes the team out of camp, like, realistically, the guy who's going to spend more time with the big club to me is Lecision, I think.
I like Cotter more personally, but I see what you're saying.
I think that Lecision is who you'd consider to be your reliable, safe bet who could be more interchangeable, even though I love the moxie of Cotter and what he's done. But like the D, like Whitecloud, like Haig, kind of like, are we going to get Korzak? Maybe they start to filter in, but like you just don't have these. Look at all those other teams around the league right now, man. Where did their players come from 5-6 years after a rebuild?
It's actually a story I'm going to write is when we get 23-man rosters of every single team. I'm going to count how many guys have been in the draft of any of the last 6 years. The Golden Knights are probably going to have 2 to 3.
I mean, look at the Avalanche.
It's a lot of them. Yeah.
I mean, even like Alex Newhook's going to play some big minutes at center for that team.
Yep.
And he might be Nazem Kadri's replacement, and he was a draft pick. And he was not traded away.
But we'll see.
Hey, for sure. But like, this is the point, though. Like, they have somebody that's now played enough games that they feel comfortable with, has earned the right to have that chance. There's not a single offensive threat that's been in Henderson the last couple of years that they thought they could slot into the top 6.
Let's bring this up. Ken is so down on VGK. Sounds like VGK will be shit this year. I'm not as down as what it sounds. I think the part that is important to me is I don't think they're a cup contender. I do not think this team can win a cup. And for me, that is like the worst. Like, I can't deal with that. So with that, I start to look for pieces that where can they find a way to get better? And I'm not sure I see it. We're going to bring Jason on here, and then I'm going to bring this up real quickly here.
Look at the hair on Jason, everybody.
There were a few different
Put that baby right down Broadway for the next show.
Yeah. A couple different projections out today, and I don't think I'm the only one that's down on the Golden Knights. We'll start with the lesser optimistic of the two because that question was there. This is top-down hockey. It's done using a WAR model. WAR is like wins over replacement. So the more players you have that are better than replacement players, the more points you get. The players that you have that are worse than replacement players, you get less. If you see that right there, that has the Golden Knights at 90 points and a 40% shot of making the playoffs. Like, I'm not the only one down on the Golden Knights.
Well, it's a better place to be than the Chicago Blackhawks.
I mean, when you have Seattle projected more points than the Golden Knights, that's a bad sign.
I don't like this.
Is his mic goofy for you or no?
Yeah, I'm hearing you a little bit goofy, Jason, but
boy.
I don't like this projection. They got the Canucks where they are too, and that's assuming that Pettersson and Miller are going to be good off the bat. These projections are tough. I mean, look at the Pittsburgh Penguins over there at 39.6, and that's a better team, I think, than that. And I don't buy in on the Washington Capitals right now. So you can take these Florida Panthers. That's a team that's not going to be as good as they were last year. I think they're good. I think they're set to drop off. I do.
Well, I'll flip it over to the other one. Here's Money Puck. It's a little bit harder to see this one, but most importantly, they're 64.2% for the Golden Knights.
See, Money Puck is a website that I tend to put a lot of stock into. I like what they do. I haven't looked at this, but I think to me this is more in line because when you look at the Pacific, especially to me, Calgary and Edmonton are absolute locks. There's no chance those teams don't make if they don't make playoffs. Bad things have happened, and even like at this stage, LA shouldn't miss either. I think the question marks in the division are Vegas, Vancouver. That's about it for me. Anaheim's not going to contend.
Where are you on LA?
LA's a lock too. I think LA's a lock.
Okay, because they in most of the projections that I've seen, they're not. Most of these statistical projections have LA somewhere around 50% and often lower than the Golden Knights.
So my thing with LA is I don't believe in their goaltending right now, unless they've made changes this offseason, unless I see updates to their game. It's the game's changed an awful lot, and Jonathan Quick hasn't. And it's the same thing with Peterson. Teams knew how to beat them. So that's the only thing that I think holds LA back. They could use some help on the blue line too, but I think that they're a good enough team that they should be there.
Can I just interrupt there for a second? So you don't believe in Cal Peterson and Jonathan Quick, but we're super confident in Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson?
I'm not super confident, but I am super intrigued and excited to see, because I think that
I'm with you there, but like
so let me take it this way. I tell you what, this week I came out with my tandem rankings across the NHL. I ranked teams 1 to 32 with their tandems, and I had the Golden Knights 27th. The reason and the caveat for me having the Golden Knights 27th is because there's just no workload to draw from. Okay, Logan's played 19 games. Aiden Hill's played 70 to mixed results. So I think the Golden Knights have the potential to be a top half goaltending team, but we got to see it play out. Know what you're going to get out of Quick and Peterson. If Quick's on his game, he may be lights out, but 2 other games after that, he's going to get ripped apart, So like, I still have friends that look at me and are like, yeah, Jonathan Quick, big money goaltender. And I'm like, no, not anymore. And that's where I'm not going to say I have total utmost confidence in the Vegas goaltending. I don't think it's possible to say that when your tandem has less than 100 games. You need one goalie with 100 games to say that. But I do think that there is real reason with Tom. Let's be honest here. I'm really speaking about Thompson. Okay, I think that he can grow into a role here, and for Hill, he's kind of make it or break it with this. Like, he's got to have a good year. So if he can take what he's done with Burke and transfer that, I think it's a bit of a long shot, but he's also been he's been better than Georgiev, and Georgiev got handed the keys to Colorado, man. So that was a head scratcher.
Let's test this out. Is it bad?
Yes.
By the way, this is not the Stanley Cup that I thought I would lift one day. But they're the hottest rage right now in the world when it comes to like working women. So I needed one.
Try unplugging your headphones and just going off the phone audio. You might be better. By the way, speaking of cups, my mug, Puck Drop Coffee, new sponsor at SinBin. They are fantastic. Puck Drop Coffee. They have incredibly fresh ground coffee. I will have a much better read on them. They sent me some. I'm not a coffee guy, but Abby has had some already and says it's spectacular stuff. And they are sponsoring Sin Bingo. So Sin Bingo is coming back soon. So we're excited about that.
Is Puck Drop, do they have a brick and mortar in Vegas? Or
they do not have a brick and mortar. It's all shipped to you, and it's
direct to consumer.
It's nice. It's very, very good. I opened the package and it boom, fragrant.
I love a great roast. Love a good roast.
All right, go ahead, Jason.
Really
okay,
good.
How do we sound now?
It's still not great, but go ahead and talk about where you think the goal is going to be.
Well, just to let everybody know, we're building a big SinBin headquarters. So I'm still under construction here. Mike, you'll be – yeah, okay, good. But, Mike, you're depressing me. I've been sitting in the backstage area listening to you guys. Mike, you're depressing me. Listen, I'm excited just like you are because it's an unknown season, right? But you were just talking about William Karlsson as a third-line center, and you were talking about underutilizing him. He's basically an expensive Cody Eakin at this point. And then when you have Nick Waugh potentially playing – that's true. And then you have Nick Waugh possibly playing on the fourth line. How much money is that in depth players? This team has had a trouble allocating money, and this is just another signal of that. So that scares me a little bit. The fact that they're giving up offense, a guy, William Karlsson, we all know can score. But if you put him with two wingers that are mediocre scorers and they're supposed to play defense, I don't expect much from him.
I don't expect a whole lot either offensively, but the thing about Karlsson is when he signed that deal, everybody across the league looked at it as a value. So that's one that I think we can't really look back at and go, ooh, like I think that it was more of a realistic deal than people realized it at that moment, because he wasn't going to shoot 40% the rest of his career, whatever he was shooting that year.
22, relax.
Whatever, dude. I think he was shooting 77%, whatever you want to say it was. He was through the roof, though.
When
man.
he
basically
scores, that was his quote.
Will Karlsson should be probably a 25 goal guy in the league, I think.
That's probably realistic. Not where he currently is. He's not doing that.
And especially without power play. Like if he's just going to get some scraps here and there on it, maybe. But to your point, yeah, that's what I said earlier. Like he's an really expensive third line center. I just wonder though if I know Cassidy's looking at Stevenson and Stone and how they've worked together before. And why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But does it come to a point where if that's not clicking, do you drop Stevenson down to the wing on the third line and bring Nick Waugh up to the third line center, where to me, Nick Waugh is a third line center. And you kind of have a glut right now of third line centers. So, and that's where like Brett Howden could play fourth line center if he needed, but I'm just not sure if Stevenson's going to stick at center for the rest of the year or not, unless they get that to click right away. And yeah, I don't like Nick Waugh on the wing at all. So where do you go from there with him? You know.
And if you're telling me Nick Waugh is a third line center only, right, or potential wing, I mean, again, I know it was not expensive money, but they might have overpaid altogether when they hand out these centers money. I don't know. I just look at it as, like you just said, they have too many third line centers, right? They say in baseball you can't have too many DHs, but it sort of feels that way here. And you mentioned Thompson as well. If they don't get off to that good start, and Ken was talking about 10 games, do they give in? I mean, they might have no choice.
They're not going to go like deep six this thing after 10 games.
They shouldn't.
I think
they also shouldn't be trading the entire future for Jack Eichel after 20 last year.
That part's true.
He shouldn't be firing the head coach when he's the coach of the All-Star game 3 years ago. Like they do.
I knew Jack Eichel was, dude. It's so funny. If I could go back for texts, I remember when they lost in playoffs in 2021 and they couldn't score and they needed a center and they needed a power play specialist. And I remember texting a friend of mine and saying, well, you might as well put a Golden Knights jersey on Eichel. And this was a big time dude in media. And he's like, what do you mean? What are they going to give him? I said, he's going to get either going to give up a first round pick, 8 race horses and something else, I think, to get Eichel. I said, it doesn't matter what it costs. They're going to get him. He's the best center out there. Well, they did. To your point, you're right. Like now, what's left? Like,
did it make the team better? That's the question. And that's
Krebs is gone. Talk like I'd still love to have Alex Talk on this team.
Me too.
He might be the next captain in Buffalo.
He's going to be.
That's another bold prediction.
Giving away 2 captains to get 2 players that, well, they got 1 captain.
And because of those reasons, Mike, don't you think there is pressure on these players? I mean, if Jack Eichel doesn't feel a little pressure, then I'm sorry, he shouldn't be in the elevated role that he is. He should feel pressure to get this team to the postseason.
Absolutely.
So should Mark.
Jack Eichel's going to feel the most pressure out of this club, no doubt in my mind. And that's just, he's going to feel it every single year until he's on a team that's in the playoffs or goes deep into playoffs, right? Even if he gets clobbered, even if he's on a team that loses first round, he's still going to hear it. Because guess what? If they can't get out of the first round, it's because they can't score.
Okay, where are you on this? I'm interested because I know where I am, and I'll get to that in a second. I think Jason's a little bit more towards the center on this than I am, but How much of Jack Eichel's career that he's never been to the playoffs, that he's never been close to the playoffs until last year when the Golden Knights missed the playoffs for the first time in the history of the franchise? I'm showing my colors a little bit here. How much of this is his fault?
Eichel, like Golden Knights on his shoulders?
No, not the Golden Knights. The history of Jack Eichel's career,
Buffalo?
how much of it is his fault that he's never been to the playoffs and he's never played on a competitive team?
Buffalo's been a train wreck for a while. Now, knowing the ins and outs that I know of Buffalo and what's gone on and things, I would say that probably Eichel definitely deserves some of the straight up blame for not being there. And I think his play on the ice has been pretty strong for the most part. But it's really tough to put it on one player. It's just like, but really, man, like when you have that good of a player, how many of them miss every single year, right? Like, but Buffalo's just been a mess. Like
but then he comes here and like, I'm not blaming it all on him. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying he comes here. They're in a position to make the playoffs. They're there, right there, down the stretch. We talked about it on this show. Beat San Jose, beat New Jersey at home, beat one of them, and you're in the playoffs. He gets 1 point in 7 games. 1 in 7 games. Like
with a broken thumb.
Okay.
Hand.
All right. I mean, so I guess where I'm headed on the question, we can disagree, whatever. It's not going to matter because something's going to happen this season. The Golden Knights miss the playoffs. How much stick does Jack Eichel get for it?
Oh, he's going to get buried. And that's why he has pressure.
Does he deserve it?
Because he will be blamed. Well, we'll find out. If he puts up 90 points and they don't make playoffs.
See, I hate that argument. If he puts up 90 points and 80 goals go in against him, what are we doing here? Like, why would it not be his fault? Like, so
that's what he was brought in to do.
Is he just all of a sudden like not his fault?
But they brought him in to do that. They brought in that player. So to me, that's the management's fault for not being able to put the right players around him to make it sing, if that's what happens. But he's going to feel the brunt of it 100%. I mean, I know that people seem to be down on the Golden Knights. Like we just haven't even talked about it. I think they have a really strong D-core, man. Okay. Like I don't want to just sit here and pound on Eichel, but like, I think they're going to defend well this year. It's going to come down if they can score. And with that depth, I think it's going to be, it might be tough for them to score, which is crazy to say right now, considering what they've been able to do previously. They've always been able to score. So yeah, I mean, this is Eichel's team at this point. Like that's the tough pill to swallow. If you're
Jason, where are you on all this?
Okay, well, actually, Mike just brought up a great point. If it is Eichel's team now, is that? Do you really want it to be Jack Eichel's team when you have Mark Stone, you have Pietrangelo, you have William Karlsson, Riley Smith, all these guys that are veterans, and we've been told have good leadership skills. And again, I'm not one that blames Eichel for missing the postseason because, let's be honest, the East was really stacked over those years that he was in Buffalo. The organization couldn't put it together for him, but I don't think
organize a one-car funeral procession out there, man.
Say that again. We had some feedback.
I said they couldn't organize a one-car funeral procession in Buffalo over the last decade.
So I don't know. I just look at it as if he's the guy that he's never been to playoffs. Do you really want him as the leader, as the face of the team? He's clearly the most talented player on the team. Ken and I were talking about it. He's probably the most talented player on the ice, 20 out of 32 games at the teams that they play, 31. So I don't know.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, the hard part here for Eichel is like, boy, he's going to be under such a microscope. Like his body language better be good. Like you can't mope around.
It won't be.
Right. And that's been one thing it's dogged him in his career. And like, it has to be good here because all eyes are on him and in a market that's like, I actually think that this is going to really be a breaking point for Vegas as a team this year, whether fans really stick on to this or not. Maybe I'm being a little fatalistic here,
I'm not concerned about that. Maybe that's that's my most optimistic piece. I think we're in deep enough that like you're here. Like look how many people are watching this right now. Before we're here.
I've seen this happen. I've seen the Arizona Coyotes put people in the stands for the first 5 or 6, all these things. I know. I'm just, boy, I look at those stands in preseason and I go, oh, and I know it's preseason. That's normal in every other city, but not there. I look at the practice facility. There's nobody there for practices that I'm seeing except for the flag guy and a couple of people watching. Like, people are still pissed, man.
They should
be. And I really wonder 3-4 years from now if it has the same zest that it's had. I think the tickets will always be sold.
That's all on Foley. Like it is right now. I think most people, maybe I shouldn't say most. I think a lot of people, like a ton of people, feel a lot like I do. They are not on a path to win a Stanley Cup. They are on a path to try to maintain relevance. To me, that's the worst. It's the absolute worst thing you can possibly do. And I don't think that's what Foley's wanting to do. But I also think that he doesn't have a situation right now where he can say, I need to blow all of this up based on one missed playoffs. I understand the position he was in. The season ends. It's like, what am I supposed to do? I got to make a change. I can't have goalie, coach, and GM. I can't have them all. Somebody's got to go. And so they end up choosing the coach. I think if you blow the entire thing out, you're basically just showing your panic as an owner. He doesn't want to go there. But they have to get back onto a path of winning. And they can't be a point per game, 50 games into the season, pushing the playoffs and then finding their way into the playoffs and getting blasted by whoever in the first round. Like, you have to get it going in the right direction. Right now, a lot of the fan base believes we're not heading in a direction towards the cup. We're just kind of existing, and we're not really used to this at all. That has to change. That's on Foley. I truly believe, as much as you can ever possibly believe, if this team is on the path to winning a Stanley Cup, that place will be jammed with Golden Knights fans. And when they eventually win it, whenever that day comes, the parade on the strip is going to be sick. I was just at one.
Totally agree with you. I agree with that. But I think that we're reaching the point now where apathy will set in if the team's not a winner.
And so where is Foley, where is Foley on that? So he sees that. He's going to start seeing that. There's going to be this many Edmonton fans in the building, whatever. Chicago's going to be interesting on opening night, despite the fact that they know their team is dog shit. Not good. Where do we go from here? Because right now, if they're just mediocre, he's going to have to do something.
You want the real litmus test? Look what Henderson's attendance looks like in 2 or 3 years.
I mean, that's everywhere though. Every AHL. They just opened a bar. I was there. By the way, so they just opened this the nighttime hockey bar at the M Resort. Place is great. Looks beautiful. TVs everywhere. Food was good menu, relatively cheap. If you're a beer guy, there were 90 something beers on tap. So I go to the grand opening. Now, mind you, I need to be back here by 7 o'clock to be on this show. The grand opening was at 5. M Resort is damn near in Southern California, so my gas tank is empty. Nonetheless, I was there. I had about 45 minutes. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to mingle? What? I just sat in the corner on my phone, and I felt super awkward. And then I kind of just I'm leaving now. What am I supposed to do here?
Dude, you got to mingle, man. You got to get out there. Who
am I mingling with? Am I supposed to mingle with Gage Quinney? Hey, what's up, Gage? What am I supposed to do? I don't know.
What's happening, Gage? You want to go play mini golf, man? What's going on?
You're supposed to go talk to Zach Hayes. Hey, you scored 2 goals yesterday. I was in the.
I always thought that those things were weird.
What am I supposed to do, Jason? What did I do wrong?
Well, here's the question: do they want to mingle with you?
Nobody wanted to mingle with me.
So then I think you did the right thing.
You just hide.
Players really, it's a rare player you'll find that really loves to go do fan events. That's straight talk.
I won't lie to you, Mike. That's pretty. I know it comes with the territory. You're paid good money to handle all this, but there are times that, like you just said, you can tell they don't want to be there, and it kind of comes off that way. So I always feel bad when they're put in those positions.
Some guys are better at it than others. Some guys can look at it, and to me, obviously, I've ended up doing what I'm doing because I was pretty outgoing. I will be brutally honest in saying that I looked at it sometimes when I would go do events like that and especially we're talking like some of these minor league cities where you don't know what you're walking into. I just looked at it like I was putting on an act, like I was putting on my game face, like I was presenting my
Do I have to though? Like, does SinBin, who thanks Mike saying I have no friends, do I? I mean, do I have to put on the act, or can I just hide in the corner and take some pictures?
You can hide in the corner. You can hide in the corner. Yeah. But you know what? I just wanted to look at the chat real quick here, and there was one question. It was a great question. Whose team is it? Eichels or Stone? Both. Okay.
Well, it can't be both.
This team in that locker room, it's Mark Stone's team.
Okay.
On that bench, it's Mark Stone's team.
What if he's not available?
Even toss that out the window. Who are all the eyes on, though? All the eyes are on Jack Eichel. And that to me is why, in terms of the perception of it, it's his team. The reality of it is it's Mark Stone's team. And I hope that kind of makes sense.
Here's a question. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but are you suggesting that Jack Eichel can't lead this team or any team for that matter? Because he doesn't have those skills like the Stone, like the Riley, like the Petrangelos?
That wasn't, I've never been in a locker room with Eichel. I mean, I could only pass judgment on players that I know that have played with him and everything. And I don't think it's even worth it for me to try to gauge someone on their second team, how they would be in an ability to lead. I simply mean that the eyes are on him, and that's what makes this his team. Like when you're the superstar, man, it's whether you want it or not, it's going to be your team. And he is the star power for this club now. Like, as much as we love Mark Stone and know what he does and how good he is not the superstar of this club in the perception amongst the league. Look at the decor. I mean,
what about amongst the fan base, though? Like, if I've been at the preseason games, he's played in a couple. You listen to the announcements. You go to anywhere. If they're announcing the players, Jack Eichel's not the number one fan favorite here. He's popular. Don't get me wrong. He's popular, but Thompson gets more cheers than Jack Eichel.
Here's the interesting part. I'm coming at this. This is why it's actually good that I'm in St. Louis and doing this from afar, because I see this more from a league-wide perception, a fan perception, that it's all eyes on Eichel. Whereas if you go for the big dogs amongst everybody in Vegas, who's going to get the loudest cheers? Probably Jonathan Marchessault. It's your guys that have been there. And that's why it's a different dynamic. So I might be looking at this a little bit too much on a macro sense, whereas within Vegas, obviously being the more micro sense, Eichel's not going to be the fan favorite in Vegas right now. It's going to be guys that have been there for a while.
I mean, when he gets to 95 points and breaks every single record in the book, and he breaks the 43 goal record, and he breaks the points record, and he does all these things, he's eventually going to become the superstar of the franchise. That is, unless they miss the playoffs, in which case, then he's the old usage of the term GOAT. What is the new usage of the term GOAT? GOAT used to be like you're the worst, and then GOAT turned into an acronym, and now it means you're the best. Tom Brady.
But there's a wrestler named Natalia that goes by the BOAT, BOAT, the best of all time.
But what is the new term for like the guy that catches all the shit? Like, it used to be GOAT. I'm telling you, it used to be GOAT. Like, that's that guy's the GOAT of the team. Like, what is it now?
The person that takes all the flack, right?
Yeah. Who's that? I mean, can't say person that takes all the flack. That's a terrible.
You're not the lightning. You're the lightning rod. That's what I used to always say.
What kind of animal gets shitted on all the time? That's what we need to come up with.
This is a good. This is
one of those rhinoceroses that have birds on their back the whole time.
A hippo spins
like a suckerfish. Like a shark with suckerfish on it, or whatever those things are.
That could be. So it's possible that Eichel will become the suckerfish if it doesn't work. I'm going to be honest.
This is terrible.
It doesn't work. All right, let's go to this question from Jason.
This guy's a $10 million player that puts up 87, 90 points a year. We're talking about suckerfish.
I mean, but he missed the playoffs. He's going to catch it. He's going to get suckerfished as much as you can possibly get, because and I'm going to be honest. It's October 5th. We're less than a week from the season. If the Golden Knights miss the playoffs, I'm going to give Jack Eichel shit. Like I'm sorry. That's what it is. You became the guy. They traded all what they had to trade to get you to a team that was a cup contender. I truly believe that the day they traded for Jack Eichel, their cup hopes died in this current setup. He needs to prove me wrong in a big time way. And until he does that, I'm going to continue calling him a suckerfish. Jason Erickson, since the team is not better on paper, what is your expectation for this season? Like, so Mike, what would you say about that?
For the expectation for Eichel?
No, for the Golden Knights, for the team as a whole. Enough about
wrap it up. Okay, wrap it up here. Yeah, no kidding. I think this team's going to be right at the edge of making playoffs all season long, and I really can't make a move either direction, whether they do or not. I think the Pacific is weak enough that they are going to make it, if I had to guess. But I think they're going to make it as the fourth team, and I don't think there's not going to be a fifth team from the Pacific this year. It's going to be 4. And I think they make it in as the 4th club.
Okay, Jason?
Well, it's going to depend on the first month or so. So we're going to have to. I know Mike brought it up earlier. Talking about Logan getting his feet wet, getting on top of it, and being the number one they need. So, man, I want to say that that they're going to make the playoffs, but I'm closer to that 94 than I am with that 97.
Cassidy factors. He's a damn good coach, man.
He is.
Like, that's what
Not saying he's not, Mike, but as Ken brought up earlier, what's the pressure on him? I don't think there's any pressure. If he says, you know what, we're not good this year, we're going to set up for the next few years. I'm under a 5-year contract, so there's no pressure on me to make the playoffs. So, and to tell you the truth, I would find that, and if I was a fan, I would find that, something positive, knowing that the coach knows where they stand today and where he wants to be in a few years. So I'm 94 to 97. I think they miss.
Mike, I want your opinion on this, which is, what is the front office's expectations on this team, and what is the owner's expectations on this team? We can sit here and say all we want. We think they finish 3rd place. We think they might finish 4th or borderline playoff team, whatever. This is a man who screamed Cup in 6 from the rooftops. Literally, he was on a rooftop once yelling it. I guess it was kind of a balcony of T-Mobile. Whatever. Never mind. It's year 6. They still think they're Cup contenders. Like, what is the expectation of the front office and the owner?
Man, I know they want to contend, and I know they want to win cups, but how on earth can you legitimately look at Tampa Bay or Colorado and think that this team can beat them?
Carolina, Florida.
Calgary.
Christ. Yeah, they're good. I don't see how you can believe that. I don't.
So what are we doing here?
Well, you're paying the price is what you're doing.
For what? For Eichel trying to win at $92 million last season? Like that? Is that what we're
for
paying?
Eichel, for Pietrangelo, for you? I mean, you name it. It's just on down the list. You're paying the price right now. And the hard part is there aren't many contracts coming off the books here. Like, this is who you got for the next 2 seasons. It's not just this year. It's 2 seasons.
So then, Mike, what do you think Cassidy's expectations are?
Make playoffs.
That's
I think
it.
Make playoffs.
And then
your expectations are always to win, but he in Cassidy's mind, this season will be an utter failure if they don't make the playoffs. They have to make the playoffs. Like,
there's no pressure. He feels no pressure whatsoever to win the Stanley Cup, right?
Internal pressure, for sure. It's there. But I think for management, like, compare this roster to last year's at the start of the season. I mean, we looked at last year's at the start of the year. There was no doubt that team should have. You toss all the injuries out the window and everything. That team should have been a contender. They should have been.
Yes.
Even 2 years ago, like 3 years, like those teams were damn good clubs on paper. And this isn't. This just isn't. And man, I kind of hate to say it, but it's also kind of aging too at this point. Like, yeah, you got Eichel at a young age, but you don't have too many like crazy vets on this club, but your team average is starting to creep up closer to 29 now, 30. So
that brings us to our final topic of the day. Discuss the Kessel first line. I kind of said we were going to do this at one point. So the current first line, you could call it 1A, 1B. You could call it 2A, 2B if you want, but there's not a first line. However you want to say it. The line is Smith, Eichel, Kessel. Smith playing on the wing that he has not typically played on. However, we'll see how that goes. But how do you view Phil Kessel, 42 points with the Arizona Coyotes, 2.7 point shares with the Arizona Coyotes, still impossible in my mind. I don't know how that happened. Here we are. $1.5 million 1-year contract. How do you view him as number one line winger?
I'm pretty amazed that he's playing first line. I thought he'd be sheltered in the third line role. That's what I expected. But I think I even wrote that, but that was also before Pacioretty got shipped out of town, maybe, I want to say. Boy, Phil can put puck in the net. Phil can make some offensive plays, but he's not going to shut down. Those are offensive zone faceoffs, period. And I think you can toss out the last year and a half in Arizona. I think you kind of have to look back to Phil's time in Pittsburgh and hope that he is still there from a physical standpoint. He looks great, man. He came in great shape. Yeah. So I'm willing to write those last couple of years off in Arizona, but I haven't looked at Phil Kessel as a first-line player now in at least half a decade. So I'm perplexed by this one. This is one of those. It's definitely, hey, I'm from Missouri. It's the show me state. I'm very much show me on this one, because if I had to project what's going to happen and just guess, I would guess by the end of the year, Kessel's playing protected minutes on the third line and then playing a lot of power play because he's still magic with the puck.
I'm guessing 15 to 18 goals only because he plays half the season on the first line, like Mike just said. Eventually gets protected down on the lower end, third line, maybe second line, whatever. But he'll pick up some important power play goals. Mike, you mentioned it about Cassidy's power play. 15 to 18 goals. I think that's good enough for what he was signed for.
He's going to chip in. He'll chip in 50 points. 40, 45, 50 points, I bet you.
So I'm the ultimate pessimist here, I guess. I think he's a healthy scratch more likely than getting 50 points.
Wow.
I don't think at this point in his career he's going to be able to play much more than 12 to 14 minutes on a team that's actually competing. Sure, he can play 17 on the Arizona Coyotes and get 42 points and do what he did last season, but I don't think he'd last out of the month of October on the first line. I'm not even sure he lasts out of the first 2 weeks on the first line, because how is that going to work? It's going to take time for Eichel to become a defensive guy anyway. That's not going to be an immediate thing anyway. Riley Smith can't do it all for you, and I'm not convinced, call me crazy, I'm not convinced that Will Karlsson, Mike Amadio, and Brett Howden are going to be able to take on every single defensive zone start against the other team's best players. I just don't see it happening. So for me, they're going to have to shift it fairly quickly. And that goes back to when do the misfits go back together? And is that the panic move that we're all just going to be sitting here waiting for? And luckily, I will say there is a huge benefit of the first 3 games. 2 of them are wins. You have to win 2 of them. They're playing Chicago at home and Seattle at home. Win those 2, and you can't be off to that bad of a start. Better than last season. They were 1-4. Better than a couple seasons ago when they weren't very good. I just don't think it's going to take all that long, and I don't think he's going to be afraid to switch it.
Yeah, I don't disagree. But I think Kessel's still going to chip in 50 points, 45, 50 points.
I just don't see how it happens.
I think it will. I'm very curious to see it. He's durable. He's going to play.
So when all right, just humor me. When he finds his way off of the first line and he's down on a third line, now who's going up? Are we putting Nick Waugh there, or are we doing the whole Karlsson, Stevenson switcheroo and we find a way to keep our 5 of our 6 best players in the top 6?
I don't even know.
See what I'm saying? So now all of a sudden he's on a third line centered by Brett Howden with his left wing as maybe Michael Amadio, who might be in the top 6 himself.
Show me, State. That's what Mike's saying.
Show me. I got to see how it plays out. They're throwing spaghetti against the wall until we do that. But I don't know, man. I still think Phil Kessel can fill the net. Like,
to me,
and I mean,
if you're going to play that game, if you're going to play the Phil Kessel game, and we're going to give Phil Kessel 16 minutes, it's Marchessault, Eichel, Kessel. Just go for it. And then you play Stone, Smith, Carlson, and you say
plus minus
that line's scoring, that line's not. I don't see any way. I don't see this trying to go balanced with a roster that's short a player and has two deficient players defensively. And you can argue a third. I'm not a huge Stevenson defensively guy. I love Chandler Stevenson. I think Chandler Stevenson's great. Somebody recently asked me who's my favorite player on the team to watch. It's Chandler Stevenson. Having talked to him today, he's actually one of my favorites to talk to too. Haven't had a chance to do that in a couple of years. I don't think he's great defensively. You're deficient 3 of your top 6 players defensively. How is that going to work?
System.
And then I didn't even count Marchessault, who is like average plus on a good day when he's not pissed off.
Marshy's become a pretty well-rounded player, man.
But when he's pissed off, he doesn't.
Well, but that's been less. He's been really good at that. We got to live in the recent times, man. Marshy's been really good with that.
What are your thoughts on this?
That's an ugly man right there.
Great flow. Love the captain on it. Love how the hair's coming out the side. That's Stone for sure. Yeah. Can I just say, Stone's healthy, and that's fantastic.
Looks it.
That's great.
Certainly looks it.
Yeah. So
that is fantastic. Okay, well, we're gonna do the next show is one day after the home or the away opener. I will be at the away opener, so we'll see if I'm awake for that as I'm driving down and then driving back the same day, and then we'll be Wednesday night. We'll be back here, so we have to, I guess, make a selection. We're going to make our picks. They're playing the LA Kings the last time they started the season in the LA Kings home opener. It was a disaster. Will it be a disaster again?
LA is a good team. We're talking about one game here, but there's a lot going on in VGK land, and there's a lot of stability in LA. And they picked up a guy who can really fly in Fiala. And they retained Edler. I think LA is going to take it.
3-1 LA.
And of all my pessimism, here comes the optimist. I think the Golden Knights win. I think that they're gonna be able to ride some of the anger, and they're just gonna play a game that's one of their better games and play in a better, just with more energy, with more. And I'm going super intangible here, but the rosters aren't that far off. Let's be honest. The goalies aren't that far off. They're fairly close teams. I think how things go over the course of the season, I'm probably going to end up picking LA to finish above the Golden Knights. But I think on opening night, having been there last season, understanding that this has been, boiling over for a long time. I think the Golden Knights come out and blitz them in the first period, 2 or 3 goals in the first period, and then they find a way to hang on throughout all of it. I'll say Golden Knights win 4-3.
Cool.
So they're scoring all their goals. They're scoring all their weak goals in that goal.
Are you secretly in the Discord under a false name?
No, I swear I'm not, man.
You should be in the Discord. The Discord is fun. If you are not in the Discord, you want to be in the Discord, not you, Mike, but anyone else. You sign up for our text service, winnow.app, winno.app/SinBin, and we text you every breaking news. This morning, you learned that Zach Whitecloud was not on the ice, and then you learned that it was a maintenance day. Actually, I think I forgot to send the text saying that it was a maintenance day. So now you're all learning that now. Sorry, everyone. Preseason for me, too. But winnow.app/SinBin, you get access to our Discord. You get funny cameos from Mike or Jason or I if you sign up for the higher end thing, and eventually we're going to get a bunch of those people that have signed up to come on here. The Discord is awesome. There's all sorts of different stuff. Every single game has a discussion. Anytime anything happens around the league, there's a discussion about it on the Discord. It's really fun, and we've been doing that in the off season, so I highly recommend all of that. Parting words, Jason, with your there's been a lot of discussion about your haircut versus William Karlsson's haircut versus all of this. Where are we here?
Oh, listen, I'm still disappointed he cut it. I mean, William Karlsson has only scored 43 goals with longer hair, not short hair. And now, obviously, the team is treating him that way by putting him on the third line. So hair works, Ken.
My daughter's really upset. My 9-year-old daughter loves long flowing blonde locks on Scandinavian men. Rope Hintz and William Karlsson, her favorite players.
Every person, like, isn't that just the entire female race and like most of the male race? To be honest,
I think I'm getting better looking the more gray I get. Honestly, I don't know. I think I'm just
look at that.
Look at this. Well, that's why they kicked me off air. Just going.
Is that what it was?
I think so. I am definitely. I actually kind of feel like I'm reaching my prime right now.
I think you might be.
I think you could still be playing, Mike.
There's been a couple teams. Seattle right now doesn't have anybody in the American League. I keep waiting for the call.
Ooh. Let's get a goalie interference petition.
I'm still, keeping in shape here. Just muscles and just stretch it out.
All right, you teased it. You teased it in the promo video. Let's go. Where's the new wrestler character for goalie interference?
I've been slacking on it. I haven't come up with it yet. So we need to.
It's preseason.
I need to dig in. It is. We need to debut an actual name, but we're going to make it work. And I still think that it's got to be dark and foreboding. That's what I want it to be. I think
it might fit for this season. Hopefully, it's not. We're all here to.
It's a new day, man.
Better. They might be. We barely talked about it. The blue line's good. The reason why we never touched on the blue line almost the entire show is because they have 6 dudes that are good. Potentially a 7th. They're fine on the blue line.
I'm really excited to see this year.
There are issues. Like the fun thing is, for the first time since year 1, and I don't think anyone would disagree with this, we have no clue what we're going to get. Every single regular season game is super exciting, at least to start the season. We haven't had that for a long time. I'm excited about it. I'm pumped to go to LA for the week or next week, and then come back and see 2 games against 2 teams that they should beat. Like, I think it's realistic for 3-0.
Yeah. Well, I agree that it's going to be a fun year just because of the chaos factor. We don't know what to expect.
And you want to know what's really bad, and really I think that like I might end up getting fired over this, is that we went this entire show without me telling anyone that this show is brought to you by the Jimerson Law Firm. The Jimerson Law Firm is one of Las Vegas's preeminent law firms specializing in high-stakes civil, family, and what is the word? High-stakes civil and family litigation. I'm way off. See, you should just fire me. Sorry, Jim. Just fire me.
Jim, we got to put this. Jim, we're going to splice this at the beginning of the show, and we put it up.
Jim knows it's preseason. He understands.
Yeah, it's just brutal. I basically just had my San Jose performance from last Friday right there. Just an absolute disaster. And I'll be honest, it's not good enough. I'm not going to dance around it. We got to be better next week. We're going to be better.
Thanks again, though, to Jim Jimerson of the Jimerson Law Firm. We love you, Jim.
We're
happy to be back.
He's the absolute best. And if you have a high profile divorce, like someone who may or may not be on my shirt right now, you might want to call the Jimerson Law Firm. Hopefully that he just keeps playing football. I don't care about the family stuff. Just keep playing football.
All right. On that note, I think this has been a great episode.
All right. Fantastic stuff. Thanks again.
We're just never going to use the suckerfish term again. We're going to find something better.
Scapegoat. I think scapegoat's probably better. I think if you put scape before goat, it kind of turns the term of scapegoat. It turns it into something correct.
If I'm a Kings or Sharks fan, I'm making suckerfish shirts right now.
Brutal.
Boy.
I'm mad at myself now, but yeah.
It's your fault. It's your fault. That's it.
All
Good night, everyone. We'll see you next week after game 1 when the Golden Knights are 1-0. Goodbye.
Goodbye.